Hello and welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Theo Argitis. He is the editor-at-large economics and business at the Hub news site. Theo, I want to change gears. I did notice that you wrote recently about how Canada's great immigration experiment is now ending. Could you elaborate for our viewers on that one?
Well, I mean, essentially, we had this out of control kind of population growth for a couple of years following the pandemic, largely reflecting, well, I mean, three things really. One, they were increasing the number of permanent residents in Canada, what we call in Canada immigration. These are people that come in here as permanent residents, and that is the path towards citizenship. And they had raised that number up to near 500,000. That plan was to have grow our immigration by 500,000 a year. And just to put that into perspective, Tony, when you were in power, those numbers were closer to like 250,000
That's
for
right.
permanent residents.
Yeah, for sure.
And in addition to that, they just made it easier for foreign students to come into Canada to work. They loosened temporary foreign worker permit requirements. So we actually had this massive increase, not just in permanent residents, the immigration stream, but also in the non-permanent residents, the temporary workers and foreign students. And that number of for non-permanent residents increased to 3 million. We're at about over 3 million right now. That's an increase of 1.5 million in a couple of years. That it was a massive increase in population. That as if you remember, Tony, at the end of last year, or like in the fall last year, I think it was in October, the government, because of the kind of the blowback, in terms of housing affordability and other kind of, access to healthcare and that sort of thing, people were kind of, the support in the public for these large numbers. You saw kind of public opinion kind of deteriorate on that front. So the government actually did impose some limits at the end of last year, trying to reduce immigration of non-permanent residents, bring that down from 3 million to 2 million. Non-permanent residents over the next couple of years, and slow down the pace of permanent residents. So the end result essentially is that this year we're actually expected to see it's 41.5 million people living in Canada right now. They're anticipating that we will probably see no growth, maybe even negative growth in population in 2025, and the same thing in 2026. Flat or negative growth. And that's the first time, Tony, since 1867, where we've actually had a year of no population growth and certainly no negative growth. So this is quite an extraordinary thing. Now, I mean, the question is, can they pull it off? That's the other question, whether they can actually reduce these numbers. But certainly that experiment that saw population just grow at the pace of 3% per year, population growth for a couple of years, and really undermine public support for our immigration system. And that was the one thing
That's right.
We all agreed to in Canada. There was you couldn't find anybody who, barely anybody who didn't agree on immigration in this country and suddenly undermine public support for immigration. So it was quite, deleterious kind of, really a policy error, right? That's what it was.
Yeah, no, and of course, there was, as you say, there started to be, even amongst new arrivals, a conclusion that things had gone too far and how it impacted healthcare costs, housing prices, and so on. We've got a half a minute left, I guess. Generally, are you optimistic about the state of the Canadian economy moving forward?
I think that as long as the trade situation gets kind of worked out, I think that it looks like we're going to avoid a recession. So we've been in a very difficult situation over the last 4 or 5 years, and we need to overcome kind of the pandemic and all the other, now the Trump crisis. But once we get through that, we'll still need to confront our low growth problem, low productivity problem, the underlying structural stuff that were problems,
that needs to be done.
before the pandemic. And to be honest, have been problems for the last 20 years, problems when, you were dealing it when you were in government, Tony. Those things are still with us, and we're going to have to deal with that in the long term.